Hi everyone, welcome back to the next video on this channel. Today we are going to have a quiz on this channel. This quiz will be a live quiz and the topic for the quiz will be the basics of UiPath. So in case you want to judge your knowledge that how much do you know the basics of UiPath, go ahead and watch this quiz. So let's get started. Before we directly jump into the quiz, let us see what are the rules and how exactly the quiz is structured. So we would have total 15 questions in the quiz. The questions will be on the basics of UiPath. There would be 15 seconds to answer each question. So whenever there is a question that is displayed on the screen, you will have a timer which will be getting incremented as you can see in the bottom. So this would be a 15-second timer and you would have 15 seconds to answer the question. Once the 15 seconds are passed, then the answer will be displayed and the correct answer will be displayed on the screen. So what is expected as an audience? You just have to comment your answer along with the question, or you can also write down your score somewhere and directly comment the score at the end in the comment section. Okay, so I hope you understand the rules and you understand the structure of the quiz. Now let's get started. Okay, so here comes the first question for the quiz. How many kinds of assets we can have in UiPath? 2, 3, 4, or we can create any kind of assets. I repeat the question. How many kinds of assets we can have in UiPath? 2, 3, 4, or any kinds of start. Any kind of asset can be created. So you have 15 seconds. If you know the answer, please write down in the comments box. After this timer is completed, we will demonstrate the correct answer. So the correct answer is we can have 4 kinds of assets in UiPath. Let's go to the next question. How can you delay the automatic recording? So we are dealing with an automatic recording and I want to put a delay. So how exactly can we delay the automatic recording? The options are escape key by clicking the left click, by pressing the F2 key, or it is not at all possible to delay the automatic recording. So your time starts now. The question is, how can you delay the automatic recording? Okay, escape key, left click, F2 key, or it is not possible. Please go ahead and write down the answer in the comment or just write down your score. The correct answer is by pressing the F2 key. So what will happen when you press the F2 key, the automation will halt for 3 seconds and that will allow you to open some kind of submenus. Okay, let's go to the third question. Where should we store our credentials? So when I say credential, I mean where should I store the user ID and the password? In the Excel file, I should directly use it inside the workflow. I should store it as orchestrator asset, or should I store it in a notepad or a JSON file? So you would have to tell me that where exactly we should store the credential in UiPath Studio. The credential means user ID and the password. So let me know if you know the answer. And the correct answer is we should store the credential in the orchestrator asset. And once you have the orchestrator asset in the UiPath Studio, you will use an activity called get credential, and then you can use directly in the UiPath Studio. So you don't have to store the credential in the Excel file, inside the workflow, or inside a JSON or a notepad file. Okay, let's go to the fourth question now. What is the default timeout of UI element activities? So we have certain UI element activities which are required to interact, such as click activity, type into activity, and every activity has a timeout. That after that timeout, the activity says that the element was not available. So what is the default timeout? Is it 15, 30, 60, or 120 seconds? So what is the default timeout of UI elements in the UiPath Studio? Okay, so the correct answer is 30 seconds. So the default timeout for activities in UiPath, UI element activities, is 30 seconds. You always has an option to go ahead and change the time. You can always go ahead and increase and decrease the time based on your automation, but the correct answer is the default timeout for every activity is the 30 seconds. I hope you are getting the correct answers. Let me go to the question number 5. That said, what kind of variable can I use to store a selector? So I have created a selector in, let's say, UI Explorer. Now what kind of variable can we store a selector? Is it UI element, a string variable, a generic variable, or a double variable? So I have a selector with me and I want to store the selector. What kind of variable should I use? I hope you got the correct answer. The correct answer is the string variable. So you can store a selector in a string variable, and the same string variable now can be passed to the selector property of any UI activity. Okay, so in case you want to know more about the selector, there is a dedicated playlist on the channel which is talking all about selector. You can go ahead and refer that. Okay, let's go to the question number 6 now. What is the slowest method of reading the text? So I have to read the text somewhere and I have three methods, right? Full text, native, and OCR. So which one would be slowest? The full text would be slowest, the native, the OCR one, or all of them will have the same speed when it comes to the execution time. So you are reading the text, which one would be the slowest? Is it full time, native, OCR, or all have same speed? Okay, so the answer is the slowest would be OCR because that works on the image based. The full text and the natives are the fastest as compared to the OCR one. So not all are having the same speed. The OCR one will be the slowest. Okay, and there is a difference between all three of them. Go ahead and read about them in docs.uipath.com, and I have a video on my channel explaining the difference between them. Okay, so let me go to the next question, that is question number 7. What all direction a argument can have? So we all have seen variables and arguments, right? So what all are the direction that we can have an argument? Is it in, is it out, is it in out, or all of the above? All of the above means in, out, or in out. So there are different directions. So let me know the answer in the comments, or you can just note it down somewhere for your score. Okay, so we can have in, out, in, out. So all of these are correct answer. So we can have the argument direction as in, out, and in, out. Okay, let me go to question number 8. The question number 8 is, how do we make a selector more reliable? When I say more reliable, that means whenever there is a some changes and the selector is able to accommodate, how do we make a selector more reliable? So I have option by adding the IDX property, adding the wildcard, that is the question mark and the asterisk, selecting all the parents in the UI Explorer, or removing the ID attribute. So which option should I use to make a selector dynamic? Your time has started. I hope you have guessed the answer. If you know the answer, please comment in the comment box that how do I make a selector more reliable that it does not break. Okay, so the correct answer is adding the wildcards. Adding the wildcards mean adding a question mark and a star asterisk symbol, so that will replace the fixed part of the selector and make it more dynamic. So how do we make a selector more reliable? Because IDX is not recommended, selecting all the parents is also not recommended, and ID, removing the ID will not make the selector more reliable. So the correct answer is adding the wildcards. I hope you are enjoying this video. If you are enjoying, give me a like on the video. And let me go to the next question, that is question number 9. So we have an Excel activities, right? So and we use the Excel read range activity to read the data. So when I use the Excel application scope and I have a read range activity, what is the output? I get a data table, a data row, a generic data, or I get a string. So I am reading an Excel in UiPath. Which data I get? Data table, data row, generic, or string? So the correct answer is read range activity in UiPath will give you a data table. The data table will be a collection of rows and column, and the entire data of the Excel will be stored in a data table. It would not be a string, data row, or a generic. Okay, so in case you want to know what exactly are Excel application scope, what are the real-time scenarios and all, so there are 2 dedicated playlists on the channel that you can refer to know more about the Excel activities. Okay, let me go to the next question, that is the question number 10, that I have to pass the data across the workflow. So I have 2 workflows and I have to pass the data across the XAML. So how do we pass the data? Should I use variable, selector, arguments, or all of above? So the question is, I have to pass the data across the workflow. What should I use? Variable, selectors, arguments, or all of above? So the correct answer is we should always use the arguments with out or the in out property that will help us to pass the data across the workflow. I hope you guessed it right. Now, having said that, let me go to the next question. That is the question number 11, and which is output of the get Outlook mail message activity. So I am reading an email from Outlook and I am using this activity. What would be the output? Will I get the string? Will I get a list of string, a generic object, or I will get a list of mail messages? So what is the output of get Outlook mail message activity? The correct answer is list of mail messages. So whenever we are reading an emails with the help of get Outlook mail messages, we will get list of mail messages. Now in UiPath Studio, we will iterate the list of mail messages and get all the details like attachment, sender name, body, subject. So we get a list of mail messages whenever we use the get Outlook mail message activity. Okay, so that was question number 11. Let me go to the next question. That is question number 12. Activity we will use to type employee name in a web page. So assuming that I have a company web page and I have to type the employee name. So which activity I will drag and drop to type the employee name? So will it be insert text? Will it be type string, input text, or the type into activity? So I have to simply type the employee name on the web page. Which activity should I use? So the correct answer to type employee name on the web page would be the type into activity, because that is the activity which is provided by UiPath to type anything on the UI elements, and since it is a web page, we will use type into activity. Okay, so type into activity will come with a selector. You will specify and then you will pass the value that will be the employee name, and that when you run the automation, the value will be typed in the web page. I hope you get this answer right. Having said that, let me go to the next question. That is the question number 13. Okay, so I have a selector which is having UI element, and the selector is having a top level window as well. So when I say top level window, it is having the parent container as well. So what is this type of selector? Is it a full selector? Is it a partial selector? It is both full and partial selector, or it is none of the above. So I have a selector having the top level window. So what is this kind of selector? Is it a full, partial, both, or none? So the correct answer is the full selector, because we are having the top level window. So whenever we create a selector, uh, we do with the help of basic and the desktop recording, and whenever we get a full selector, that means the full selector, whenever you go to the open selector, you will see that the top level window is specified. So whenever there is a top level window specified, that means that is a full selector. In case of, let's say, attached window or attached browser, you would not have the top level window available. That means it is a partial selector. So the correct answer for this one is a full selector. Let me go to the next question, which is that what are the type of workflows which are available in UiPath? So whenever we have to start a project, so there are different kinds of workflows which are provided by UiPath. So you have to tell me which are the type of workflows available. So is it sequence, flowchart, state machine, or all of above? So workflows are the thing that are the starting point of a project. So what are the kinds? Sequence, flowchart, state machine, or all of A, B, C? All of them are available in UiPath as workflow. So the correct answer is all of them are available: sequence, flowchart, and state machine. In case you want to know more about the type of workflow, there is a dedicated playlist in my channel which says types workflows in UiPath, and you will get to know exactly the difference between each of them and when to use what, when to use state machine, when to use flowchart, what is the difference between them, and all of that details is available. Okay, so I hope now till now you would have got a nice score. So now the next coming up next is the last question for this video. That is the question number 15, that I have to use an activity and I have to get the input from the user. So I have to, let's say I have to ask the user that give me some information. So which activity I will use? Will it be write line? Will it be add log field? Will it be input dialog? Or I can use all of them to get the input from the user. So I have to ask the user to provide me some information in my automation. Okay, so the answer is the input dialog. I cannot use write line because that will simply print the item in the console, and that would not be able to the user would not be able to give the input. Add log field again will add some details to somewhere else and it will not ask that, but input dialog will have an pop-up kind of thing, and you can specify that what do you want. Enter the first name, enter the last name, enter the details. So input dialog is the correct answer, that what all are the activities to get the input from the user. Okay, so this was the last question for this quiz. I hope you enjoyed the quiz and you have your score ready. So next thing, I would want you to go ahead and comment your score in the comment box, so that will know that way I will be knowing that you have watched the complete video. Also, let me know in the comment section if you want the next part and what is the topic that you want me to create a quiz for. We can go from basic to advanced, or particular quiz, let's say on Excel, on Selector, or anything. Okay, so that is all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.